Welcome to Scuba Diver Live, and another live stream that aims to inspire and educate, as well as bring a bit of fun into your home. And remember, if you like what we're doing, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, and then you won't miss out on any future installments. And if you're watching us live, send us any of your burning questions, because we'll be putting them to our guests at the end of the show. Now, before we bring on our guests, I'd just like to do a little shout out to the guys at Night at 90. They're our one-stop shop for rebreather and technical diving equipment, and they sell high-end equipment and manufacture their own. So check out their website. On with today's show, and we will be talking to two diving legends, and I don't use that word lightly. They've been synonymous with the Bahamas for what seems like forever. Welcome onto the show, Stuart and Michelle Cove. But I think we've only got Michelle at the moment because Stuart's en route from Florida.
Good morning. How's everybody?
Great. I'm very jealous already that you are in the sunny Bahamas and we're stuck here in England.
Yes. Well, I hear your temperatures are pretty warm over there, though.
It has been. It's been pretty good, actually. The last few days, I think it was the warmest day of the year so far yesterday, 32 degrees centigrade in certain places. But we don't quite have the view you've got there.
I know. So I'm at the dive shop, and even though we've been opening select days for private charters so that we get in the groove of these new protocols, social distancing on the boat and everything. And right now we don't have a trip today, so we're continuing our deep cleaning and prepping and everything that we have. Oh, I see Stuart's there. Hey, Stuart.
Oh, Stuart's arrived.
Boy, that was a trying, man, for a techno tard.
So I was telling them about how we're prepping for the COVID-19, new protocols. And the Bahamas has a clean and pristine tag that they're doing. So all of our returning employees will have taken the COVID Ministry of Tourism protocol exam and seminar. And then we're also with various dive agencies taking their protocols as well. And we are implementing them in the company. So we have a company-wide protocols. Everybody, I'm not wearing a mask right now, but the government is going to require everybody to wear a mask that is servicing guests, and guests are also required to wear a mask. Commercial travel starts on July 1st, and any visiting guests will be required to take a COVID test, the swab that goes up your nose, and will arrive with a negative test, which will be, and you also have to submit a questionnaire, which is easy and online, in order to get a health certificate from the Bahamas government, and then they will allow you entry. And this is just to keep everybody really safe, and make sure that, because we have like 4 active cases and none in the hospital, and basically we're almost at 0.
Oh, well, that's great news.
I'll show you, if you like, a little bit of what we're doing. So when you enter our buses, Stuart's got his mask on.
Oh, I'm demonstrating correct mask technique. I like it.
So
when
yeah,
you enter our buses, sorry.
This is how you put your mask on. And I'm in Fort Lauderdale right now, which is the hot spot in the United States. So I'm very nervous not having my mask on.
That's it. Well, you don't want to be bringing that back to the Bahamas with you.
Yeah, and
exactly.
I had a COVID test, so I got the results on Monday, and then as soon as I got the all clear, then we head back.
That's great.
So when guests come and we pick them up, they'll come onto our bus. They'll be given a squirt of hand sanitizer, and we will all of the hotels and everything are also checking everybody regularly. And then when they and we'll also be doing half capacity in our buses, spacing everybody out. We can put the windows open to keep a nice airflow. And then when you get to the dive shop, we're going to greet you, give you an option also to squeeze some sanitizer on your hand. And then right now, we're actually installing wash basins everywhere on the property so that you can wash your hands, which, as you know, is one of the most important things that you can do. And then as you come down the dock, you're going to see that we have spacing. So when you're getting ready to check into the registration, we have spacing stickers on the dock. And as we speak, we are doing a deep cleaning. That's Muriel there. Say hi, Muriel. Muriel was actually at the shows in England, so she's very familiar to the English market. And as you can see here, we have spacings so that everybody will be 6 feet apart as per recommendations. And everything is being super, super deep cleaned. As we hand out rental gear, we will be putting the rental gear so that you know that it's been cleaned. It'll be with Steramine or one of the recommended viral disinfectants. And we're going to disinfect that, let it dry, rinse it, let it dry, and then we'll hand it out already sealed for you so you know what you're getting. And here we have Andrea. Andrea is our maintenance guy extraordinaire. He's going through every single tank, making sure everything is sanitized and ready to go for when we reopen. And then as you come down the dock, you're going to see that we have spacing stickers all the way down to board the boats. And on board the boats, we also have marks here that'll separate everybody by 6 feet so that we know that everybody is the recommended appropriate distance apart. So we're ready for people.
I was going to say, you guys have been very busy.
Yes.
So it's great to see that you're ready to open as soon as the Bahamas open their borders. You're ready for guests. So that's great news.
Hey,
Yes,
Mark.
we're excited.
We also on the reef have marks every 6 feet on the coral to keep the divers separated from each other.
I hope you've told the marine life to keep us at the 2 meter spacing as well.
Yeah, the sharks have to be 6 feet apart.
I like it. Right, so that's great to see that you guys are ready to welcome guests back as soon as borders open and everything. But let's go backtrack a little bit. And as I said, you guys are icons of the diving industry in the Bahamas because you seem to have been there for forever. But what was it about the underwater world that first attracted you guys? Like, how did you get into diving in the first place?
Well, it's just so freaking awesome. There's no gravity, and it's so clear and beautiful and so diverse. For me, once I got my first taste, I couldn't get enough. That was it. I went to medical school or pre-med, and I left so I could start a dive business.
Well, that was definitely throwing yourself in the deep end. What about you, Michelle?
Well, growing up here, we all grew up in the water. We're all water babies. And I remember the first time I was probably under the legal age of 12 at that time, but someone gave me a regulator and I was like, oh my goodness, now I don't have to hold my breath. I can finally breathe underwater. It was like being free finally. So it's really for locals that grow up in the water, scuba diving is the next natural step. And it's a completely different experience once you're down there, the colors and the fish and everything. So definitely I fell in love in that way.
So you both got started very early on, which is great. But then you were also pioneers when it came to the Bahamas shark diving scene, because the Bahamas is now known as like one of the shark diving capitals of the world. So what was the story for that? How did you get involved with the shark diving side of things?
Go ahead, Stuart.
So Mark, what we did, we used to have the U.S. Navy had a buoy, a buoy, anchored in the middle of the tongue of the ocean, and it used to be a great place to catch dolphin fish, tuna, wahoo, and all those pelagic species. But whenever we were there, we noticed an abundance of silky sharks. So one day it was so calm, we tied to the buoy and we were hand lining fish, and all these sharks were around. And when you fish, you tend to drink a few too many beers. A dare led us into jumping in the water with them with their snorkel gear, and we were amazed. They didn't bother us at all. So the next day we came with tanks and did the same thing, and we said, man, there's something here. This is awesome, because not only do you see all the sharks, but you see the pelagics, and that deep blue water. It's 3,000 meters deep, so it's really purple blue, the water, and crystal clear. And so that's what started the shark experience for us. We got all the American, the BBC came down, CNN, Discovery, and I think this year will be like the Michelle, the 30th year or 40th year that we've been on Shark Week. because we have all the different species and the different, the consistency, ease to get to us, the accessibility. And we have a very, very strong, thanks to Michelle, large part Michelle, working with government, COVID response to protect our guests and our people and the people on the front line.
So that was how you first got into with the shark side of things. How from that did you develop the shark dive that you're most famous for? And I think we've got a video of that as well for people to see. So how did that come from that first experience?
Well, this dive with the silkies out in the ocean, we were weathered out a lot, and we knew this one site where we used to spearfish. Back when we used to spearfish, we're going back 30, 40 years. We knew where these reef sharks were, and so Michelle and I, probably Michelle's idea, said we should do a dive with the reef sharks so we don't miss out on when the weather's bad. And the reef sharks were just, as we learned to deal with them, they learned to deal with us, and now we're quite copacetic together, and it's just a lovely experience.
And it should be so that these sharks do not rely on us for food. And now, ever, it's always said that there's a 3-year study by Simon Fraser University scientists that demonstrated and confirmed that, these are giant animals. We're really only giving them, hors d'oeuvres, keeping them interested and around. And they've been tracked all the way to the southern islands of Cuba, to the Florida Keys. So they come and go. And we didn't feed them for 3 months during this epidemic. And the majority of them are right there hanging out. I mean, it's a very lively reef. There's lots of big groupers, and eels, stingrays, and so there's a huge amount of life. And they're kind of piece of the reef there. They're some of the most healthy reef that we have in the area.
And it's very cool because I've obviously been with you a few times and done that shark dive. And what I've always found interesting is you always get some people that are going on the trip who are very nervous about sharks. And then when they come back on the boat afterwards, the change that you see in how they see sharks and how they perceive them, it can be like night and day. So it is a very educational experience. It's not just an adrenaline rush. There is an educational side to it as well.
Correct. And we do have the distinctive specialty of the shark awareness course that's available online. So it gives you lots of information before you come. And then when you do your dives, you can get that certification.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, that's what it's all about. It's educating people as well. But what I found nice about the sharks in the Bahamas is you often see them on the just the normal dives that you're doing as well. If you're just heading out on the reefs or on one of the other wrecks, you always tend to see sharks kicking around. So they become quite a familiar sight. That's
right. Yeah, sharks and turtles. So sharks and turtles are protected in the Bahamas. And we noticed, that the populations, especially turtles, there's a lot of, there's hardly any dives you would go on that you wouldn't see one. And likewise, the sharks are also protected. So we have a very healthy shark population in the Bahamas.
Yeah, no, which is it shows, like I said, when you see so many on the dives. Now I want to jump back a little bit to the Ortec buoy, because if I remember rightly from one of the times when I was over, and Stuart was telling me the story about when they were jumping in the water after having a couple of drinks, that this was when you discovered Tonic immobility. So how did that come about, Stuart?
Well, just, being a horse's ass that I am, the sharks were so plentiful and they swim close. When they'd go by, I grabbed their tail. And by accident, I twisted it and the shark just went into the tonic, into a paralytic state. And that was kind of cool because being a fishing site, a lot of the sharks had hooks. So one of us would put the shark into tonic and another of the divers would come up with a fish hook remover and remove the hooks. So we kind of give them like a little cleanup.
I like the fact that you were using it for a good thing, that you were getting the fish hooks out of their mouths and everything like that. But I just like the fact that there was like no scientific research at all that went into this. You see so many times that they discover something that happens with marine life, and it's after umpteen studies. But yours was basically just being in the water, having a bit of fun, and you accidentally found out that this happened. And then now that's it. It's kind of known in science as tonic immobility, but that's how it came about.
That's exactly right.
He came out to film with us, the Silkies, back then. And did it on the camera. And they're like, wait a minute, what was that? They had never seen it done ever in the wild. They had seen it with like lizards, I think it was, like land mammals. Never seen a shark ability. And it does not hurt the shark. It does not. I mean, the only time, obviously nowadays, we don't touch the sharks or anything like that. So the only time that we would do that is for a purpose, which is normally, like Stuart said, to take the sharks out of their mouth, the hooks out of their mouth.
Mark, we've also found that with the different species, they go into tonic by doing different things. Like the reef sharks, you have to wear the chainmail and rub under their snout, and it stimulates the ampullae of Lorenzini, and then they'll go into tonic, and you can hold them, which is remarkable because they're a pretty ferocious shark. With the oceanic white tips, they're another pelagic species, and they go the same way as the tonics, as the silkies. We grab the tail of a 500-pound, 10-foot oceanic white tip, and you twist its tail, and the whole thing will go into tonic and drag you down. It's remarkable. And then with the tigers, it's more rubbering their snouts again, and those big beasts go into tonic as well. I don't mess with them because they got some big ass teeth.
I was just going to say, what I like as well is with this, where you've got these different ways of putting them into tonic immobility. It's like, how do you even find out that another species has a different way of putting it in? It's like, do you grab the tail of one and then you're like, that didn't work so well with that one?
It's crazy. Dive instructors diving with them for hundreds of times, and the Caribbean reef sharks will put themselves into tonic. They'll swim up against you and they'll just kind of go into tonic. So it's very, very fascinating and very interesting, and it's what makes our life so cool, discovering these kind of things.
Yeah, for
and then
sure.
It's great when you have the BBC National History Unit come down and get excited about it and make a show about it. And then you see other people imitating what we've been doing, and it's really cool.
No, definitely. Now, the sharks are obviously one thing that you're really well known for. But the other thing is that you've been instrumental in sinking all manner of artificial reefs around Nassau, from shipwrecks to aeroplanes to vessels for movies and everything. So I think it's probably safe to say that you're past masters at this sinking lark. So what have you learned over the years when you've been sinking things, and have they all gone to plan?
We have sunk over 40 shipwrecks, or like you say, some sort of artifact. But the key to it is prepping it. You got to get all the contaminants out because you want to be a good steward to the environment. And you want to make sure that you cut holes in proper way so the water flows through the wreck and it sinks so it lands upright. We have had very few failures. We have over 40 wrecks right now, and they're all except for one gone right side up.
Yeah, I think was the one that went upside down. Was that the one that I dived? That was, if I recall rightly, it was called the Anne.
That's correct, and that unfortunately, the engine room door we hadn't tied open, and so when the wreck went down bow first, that closed, and then the engine room stayed full of air, and as it went down, it turtled. And the wheelhouse actually went over the edge, because we always wanted to put the wrecks right on the edge of the ocean, the tongue of the ocean. And the end went upside down, and it was a real shame. And then in a hurricane, it slid off the edge.
That's right. That unfortunately has gone into the deep forever now.
Yeah, it's down about 700 feet, and the deep drop fishermen use it frequently for catching a snapper and those deep water species.
Oh, well, at least it still lives on for a purpose then. Even if divers aren't using it, at least the fishermen are benefiting from it now, so that's good. Now, obviously, you said there you've sunk lots of shipwrecks, but you have also sunk aeroplanes and other structures and stuff in the past. What's the difference between getting something like that into the water as opposed to a boat?
Well, an airplane, we have to barge out there. And generally, they cut the wings off because you can't drive them down the road. And then they bolt them back on. And so they're kind of a little bit fragile, even though in real life they're super strong. But airplanes are tricky. We sunk the airplane for Into the Blue, the Jessica Alba Paul Walker film. And it went down perfectly, but it kind of broke up because the wings are just on there temporarily.
Yeah, I suppose the thing is as well with a boat, when you get a boat down there, they are obviously designed to be on the water at least. So they tend to be quite robust. So the hulls at least will last for quite a while. Whereas I suppose aeroplanes aren't designed to be in submerged. They're not designed to be in water. So that's probably why they do become a little bit more, brittle over the years and everything.
And we have been very fortunate to have a relationship with the guy who runs all the tankers, all the fuel around the islands, and he donates his tankers when he replaces them, and they of course are all like a fuel tank. They've got all kind of stringers in them and battens and dividers, and they're super strong. And I don't foresee them going anywhere for a long, long time.
No, that's good. Now, other than the sharks,
we have 4 of those.
Yeah, exactly. We've got the sharks and we've got the wrecks, which are 2 big ticks for most divers. But you've also got, which Michelle alluded to earlier on, you've got some of the healthiest coral reefs in the Caribbean, and you've got some truly impressive walls. So what is it that makes the Bahamas such a great place for corals and sponges to thrive, do you think?
Well, I think it's the Great Bahama Bank. You have all the nutrients developing on the banks, and they flow over these walls and feed the corals. And then we have these. Sorry, go, Michelle.
No, I was going to say that the change of water. You have the wall, which is extremely deep, obviously, and a lot of good water is always flushing through. And anytime that we don't have a lot of currents, although in full moons we do have some, but it keeps all of the corals clean and fresh and nutrients moving through all the time.
And also on the reefs, which is nice, is as we've already said, yes, there's the sharks and lots of turtles because they're both protected. But what I find nice is when you're on the coral reefs that are right on the edge of one of those walls, it adds that extra thrill because you never know what's going to come up out of the deep. So you do get flybys from other pelagic species, as well as having all of the nice coral fish that you'd expect to see.
Yes, we see marlin and, of course, the dolphin fish, the dorado, what the Hawaiians call mahi-mahi. We see a lot of those, tuna, of course.
Now, as well as sharks and wrecks and the reefs, which are obviously 3 big tick boxes for the diving and everything, as you mentioned before, you mentioned Into the Blue, you are probably the most well-known as being the go-to people for Hollywood when it comes to underwater work. So how did you first get involved with the filmmakers right at the beginning?
Well, I was very fortunate when I first left university. When I dropped out, I wanted to become a diver, and a friend of mine was the dive master on For Your Eyes Only, and he hired me as I was kind of like the gopher diver. And I learned, that's why I cut my teeth on the movie industry, was on that film for 4 months. And it was really nice because it was second unit. There was no principals, so there was no stress. That was a great learning experience. Now, Michelle has got a lot of experience in front of the camera, doing stunt work. And I think my mug is too ugly, but they like her.
So when you started doing the stuff for filmmakers, because you can't, like you said, you got involved early on at the bottom end of the scale, really. But then they seem to keep coming back to you, and the things that they were wanting you to do and the projects you were involved with seem to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Because, like you said, there we saw some of the pictures. You sank aeroplanes for movies. You've sunk wrecks specifically for scenes in movies. That frame there that we can see, that was the remnants of the like a Vulcan bomber when it was down that you sunk again. So did it just keep coming back with like bigger and bigger ideas that they then wanted you to try and make a reality?
They do. They'll come back with a storyboard and they say, "Can you all do this?" And I say, "Absolutely. We can do anything, no matter how small or how large. And if we don't know how to do it, we know people who can help us figure it out."
So I like it. So you kind of agree, say, yes, we can do that. And then you have to figure out how you can do it.
There's no such thing as no at Stuart Cove, I think.
Now, as well as actually sinking some wrecks for the movies, and as you were saying, you were helping with the sharks and this, that, and other, you also have got boats that you provide that are specifically for that, and safety divers and stuff as well. So the behind the scenes must be quite full on, I would imagine, for some of these big Hollywood movies.
Michelle?
Yes, yeah. We provide logistical support, transfers, craft services, marine coordinators, safety divers, shark handlers. We do the whole gamut.
Yeah, so it is quite a big. Now, you even, if I remember rightly as well, you even got the actual dive center premises involved in one of the movies that you were doing.
That was from the Flipper movie with Elijah Woods and Paul Hogan, which is known as Crocodile Dundee, right? And they painted the whole shop to look old, like an old fishing village, and they took over the whole thing. And we left it looking the way it does because it gives us an excuse not to paint, but it's kind of got a cool style. And it's funny, once you see how they do these things, now when I watch TV shows and movies, I can see the same idea and style of how all the set makers did. It's really a cool industry.
Yeah, it's all facade, isn't it? Like you say, it's what it looks, what you see is not necessarily, what's really there. I mean, an example of that was the Vulcan bomber. I remember seeing the James Bond movie with the sunken Vulcan bomber in, and I genuinely thought you'd sunk a Vulcan bomber. At the time, I just assumed it was a Vulcan bomber. It was only when I actually got involved in the diving industry and came out to dive with you guys for the first time that we found out that it was actually just a frame with a skin stretched over the top to make it look like a Vulcan bomber. Did you guys come up with that idea, or was that actually the means that they had to use because they couldn't actually get their hands on a proper Vulcan bomber?
Well, I'm sure they couldn't get their hands on a proper Vulcan bomber, but that was before our time. They filmed that in 1965 with Jordan Klein and Rico Browning.
But at least you get to use that site now because you've got the wreck of, is it the Tears of Valor that you've got right next to it?
Tears of Valor, we sank actually in 1982. That was our first shipwreck for that same movie, which is a remake of Thunderbolt.
And that's the one where you can recreate being Bond by swimming through the inside of the hull and coming out through the torpedo hull that's in the side, isn't it?
That's right.
Now, as you said, Stuart, as well, while you were always in the background, kind of handling the safety divers and stuff like that, Michelle, you actually ended up being a stunt double for some of the bigger movies as well. So how did you get involved on that side of things, and what were some of the most memorable movie scenes that you've been in?
Probably the James Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan. We were B-roll, so we were all the workers, the divers and whatever. But it was really cool because Gavin McKinney, the other stunt diver who doubled for Pierce Brosnan, I did for Denise Richards. We were fully clothed, and the scene was at the very end. I mean, if you blink, you're going to miss it. It was my 2 seconds of fame. But we were being shot out of a submarine. So we took lines down, and we were submerged mid-water. We had masks tied to a rope and the regulator, and the safety divers were about 20, 30 feet away from us. And when they would say roll, they would pull it away from us. We'd clear the bubbles out of our face, and we'd just be dressed like normal. And there was a lift bag attached that Gavin was holding on to, and it.
Oh, we've lost Michelle for a minute. She's obviously in an area where the signal dropped out.
I can continue that. So they had a quick release going up to a lift bag. And this was a very dangerous stunt because here they are at about 80 feet. And Gavin would pop that quick release, and the lift bag would shoot them up to the surface. And so they had to blow and go.
So how many times did they end up? Was that a one-shot deal, or did they end up having to do it multiple times?
Well, they did it multiple times. And then when they got the rushes back from England, they said Gavin's hair, you could see his crease real well. And Pierce Brosnan didn't. Oh, there's Michelle.
Oh, sorry.
All right, Stuart,
I'm just carrying on
while you were while you were gone. You were all right.
That's okay. So basically, the lift bag would shoot us to the surface, and we had to, when you say blow and go, I mean, exhale as hard as you could, because as a diver, you know, you risk a lung expansion injury. And then also, since we were starting at about 40, 50 feet, we spent a lot of time at depth. So not only was there the risk of lung expansion injury, but there's the risk of decompression illness when you're ascending that rapidly. So for us, it was a very dangerous stunt, and we had to be extremely careful, have very long surface intervals, not only for us, but also for the safety divers. So it definitely, you know, you got your mask off, and then when we try to stop before we hit the surface and, you know, start swimming down and wait for your safety diver to come and give you your mask so you can reorient yourself. That was probably, you know, it was the most dangerous stunt, but it was also really fun.
And we were just asking then, while you were reconnecting, I said, you had to do this more than once as well? It wasn't just a one-shot deal.
It took the whole day, over and over again. Yeah. And then the funny thing is that the guy that was doubling for Pierce Brosnan, he has silver white hair, and they had dyed his hair to match. But over the weeks of filming, it had started to grow out. And when we were shooting to the surface, it like parted his hair. And you could see it looked like he was bald a little bit because of the silver. So when they sent the dailies back, because back in the day, you know, it wasn't digital, you sent dailies off for people to look at. They said Pierce Brosnan freaked out. He's like, Bond is not bald. Get that guy a wig. So we had this wig, and we're cutting it, and that's what he had to wear because it was more dense, you know, on his head.
It was great for us because we got another couple of days work out of it.
Yeah, I was going to say that was it. So you don't complain, apart from the fact that Michelle had to keep going up and down again.
That's okay. I didn't mind. One thing about the film jobs, it's fun, and there's really professional teams that work in those jobs. So it was a great experience.
Now I can guess. Now, as well as the behind the scenes side of things and the stunt work in front of the camera, you've also taught all manner of celebrities to dive. I've seen your wall of fame in the office. So I know there's been loads, but which ones do you remember the most, for good or bad reasons?
You know, I don't have too many bad. No one's going to treat their dive instructor badly. So most of my experiences, and I can't really speak for Michelle, but have been good. But we had Robert Redford, who we certified him and his family, and he was just a delight. And of course, on all the films, we do the training for the celebrities like Sean Connery, and all the other ones that we've worked with, which have been too numerous to even think of any. But they've all been a delight.
I would say my favorite was Heidi Klum. She was amazing. Like, not only was she great in the water, but she was so friendly. And, you know, that was before the big America's Got Talent and her designer show. She wasn't like super famous. She was more a supermodel, but it was her first time hosting Shark Week. So I was really lucky to be able to interact with her. And then also the other fun one was the Backstreet Boys. That was fun.
The Backstreet Boys. I love it. So you got
I know,
them.
right? They were recording here. So 2 of them were already certified. Nick is from Florida, so he was certified. So I did a couple of the other ones. And there was a lot of waiting for them to get up in the morning. But when they got up, they were incredible.
I can imagine. I did remember sitting in your office looking at all of the people that you've taught over the years and everything. And it was literally, you could write a book with just, with everyone that you've covered, because there's so many movie stars, TV stars, pop stars. Oh, look how much he's grown as well.
We've got the family legacy here. Our son, of course, we also have a daughter, Sasha, but Travis is working in the business. He's one of our shark feeders. And now he's helping the team get everything ready on the dock to receive guests back again.
It's good to see you keeping it in the family.
Yes. We need some fresh young blood.
Exactly. Now, as we were talking about before, you said you're ready now to come back after COVID-19. But if I remember rightly from when I spoke to you at the last DEMA show, you were right in the middle of a major plan for a move of locations for the premises and everything. And then obviously COVID-19 reared its ugly head. So what's happening with that grand plan at the moment? Is it kind of, I know it'll be on the back burner, but what's the future hold?
Well, I think everything's ready to go with that. But right now we just want to get back into business, welcome our guests back, and try to get our feet back on the ground, get financially stable, and then we'll look at making the move.
Because whereabouts is the plan? Because I know with the move that when you're there, the difference is going to be that you're going to have your own accommodation. So you kind of be a one-stop shop where people can stay with you and dive with you, if I remember.
That's correct. And we have an option on beachfront property in front of the dive shop. The dive shop's on a canal. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be our own dirt. And,
yeah, so we're starting with we've gutted the facility that was there, and then we're building on, adding a nice swimming pool, a little bar and grill. And it's like 5 minutes difference by boat, 5-10 minutes from where we are now. So it's still on this side of the island, just down the road.
Because I remember that none of the dive sites are particularly far from where you're located, which is quite nice. As soon as you're out on the water, you're at the dive sites reasonably quickly. So if you're not moving far, at least it won't spoil that.
Yes.
That's good. Well, we'll keep an eye on what's happening with that one. So that's all good. But everyone likes to know everyone's decent memory. So what is your most memorable diving moment? Anything. It could be with sharks, just general diving, with Hollywood stars, anything. But what is your most memorable moment?
Well, my most memorable moment was decompressing. We would when we were working on Never Say Never Again, we would decompress at the end of the day under the boat for an hour, and we'd all take books in our wetsuits, and you could read the book and you'd rip the page and let it drift away. But right by where the decompression line was where the exhaust from the toilet was. So it was known that during the decompression time, nobody was to flush the toilet. So one day, I was coming to the end of my decompression stop, and this big cloud of brown gook comes out and engulfs me, and I was pissed. So I went running up swimming up, and climbed up the ladder, threw my tank on the deck, and went screaming down into the cabin to the bathroom. And I said, "Jesus Christ, who the hell do you think you are, James Bond or something?" And out walked Sean Connery. So I basically got pooped on by Sean.
Oh, that's definitely one you're not going to forget.
No.
Well, mine is slightly different and more clean. Not surprising. But out at the Yachtech buoy back in the day, I mean, we used to see the most amazing things. And from pelagics to one day, we see this huge spout of air. And it was a massive whale. Now, we would see Cuvier-beaked whales and sort of pilot whales, smaller size. But this one was huge. So everyone's like, jump in the water, jump in the water. So I put on my snorkel gear, dove in and then, free dive down into the deep blue where you have no concept of depth. And it was a sperm whale. It was huge, and the tail like moved in slow motion. But I suddenly realized that if I was going to go and get caught under this tail, there was no coming up, because the sheer amount of water that the animal displaced would have taken me down with it. But it was the most humbling and overwhelming experience to see this massive, beautiful animal it underwater and in the wild.
Yeah, that must have been, no wonder that's an epic memory, that one for sure. Now, as a final question, because everyone always like, that was the most memorable. And I have to say, actually, Stuart, yours was very funny as well. Well, the next one was going to be, what is the funniest thing that's happened to you underwater?
Oh, geez, you're putting me on the spot now. The funniest thing, probably being anywhere near Stuart is funny. I mean, there's always something going on. Like, I used to think that was the safest place to be in the beginning, and I soon realized that is not the safest place, because we have a nickname for him. We call him Captain Chaos. And back in the day on the Silky Shark dive, he enjoyed putting ballyhoo in the snorkel of any unsuspecting diver. And then a shark would come along and grab it. And, we don't do those things anymore, but one of the divers would have the snorkel mask ripped off. It was, I guess that's funny.
That's funny for Stuart. That's Stuart funny.
Yeah, like you say, those times are a little bit gone. You have to be a little bit more sensible now.
We're much more sensible and PC, for sure.
Well, that was fantastic. Thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us, tempt us with those lovely images of the Bahamas. And it's great to know that you guys are ready for when guests can come back. So massive thank you to Stuart and Michelle for joining us on the virtual sofa for that one. And a final shout out to Narc at 90. Their shop's open now, so remember to check out their website for any of your tech diving needs. We'll be back on Tuesday, the 30th of June, 8 o'clock BST, with another live stream. We're going to be talking to Dan Jarvis about the work of British Divers Marine Life Rescue, who have been in the news a lot over the lockdown period, rescuing seals and whales and the like. So that'll be a great one. Look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, stay safe.